Hello everybody, and welcome to the first in a series of videos I'm making where I'm going over my Godzilla collection, as well as the general Blu-ray and DVD releases of all the Godzilla films. So I'm probably not going to touch too much on the plots. I mean, I will talk about them a little bit, but if you're looking for a more, in-depth analysis on these things, it's probably something I'll cover at a later date. For now, I'm just going to say I've had to start and restart this video multiple times because prices and information on Godzilla flicks seems to change almost daily. So it's been an ongoing effort to try and get this wrapped up. So right out the gate, there are 32 of these movies in existence, not counting spin-offs of other monsters that Godzilla's fought, or the anime trilogy that's on Netflix. So it can be a bit of a daunting task to watch all these movies, let alone try to own them all, especially with all the releases and re-releases of them over the years. So that means there's quite a bit of ground to cover. Originally I was going to try and put it all in one video, but I think to make it a little bit easier to digest, I'm going to break it up into the eras of Godzilla. So the first of these eras is the Showa Period. So the Showa Period is the original series of movies, starting with the classic Gojira in 1954 and ending with Terror of Mechagodzilla in 1975. There are 15 movies in this run, 16 if you count the American Godzilla as a completely standalone feature. So let's get right into those home releases. So I think the earliest DVD releases of this series was by a company called Scimitar back in 1998. These were English dub only, which I gotta say, I prefer to have the option for Japanese or English, just because English dubs tend to change the movie and the tone quite a bit. The only really standout thing of these releases was the special features, which was like some trailers and a sci-fi monsters documentary. But other than that, they kind of have a reputation for being low quality. I'm also kind of torn on how I feel about the artwork, because part of me thinks it's not so good, but the other is nostalgic, since these are actually the same covers I remember seeing on the first VHS tapes I saw of this series. From what I understand, they released 5 Godzilla movies, which were Godzilla King of the Monsters, this is the English version with Raymond Burr, Godzilla vs. Mothra, Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, or Invasion of the Astro Monster, Godzilla's Revenge, or All Monsters Attack, and Terror of Mechagodzilla, or in other words, 1, 4, 6, 10, and 15. They also released a box set of all 5 of these, and apparently did a release of Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, but on VHS only, which I've never seen a copy of. These generally can float around the $20 range, but I've seen them go lower, and for the $20 area, there's better out there in my opinion. Speaking of, again, in the $20 to $25 range, there was a DVD of King Kong vs. Godzilla released by a company called Good Times. And apparently this was far from a good time. I personally haven't seen this copy like in the wild, but I've read that there are VHS versions that have better video quality, and the only extra feature that this has is like some production notes. It also is extra weird because like the images on the case and the menus are from a later Godzilla film and from like the 70s Kong, even though this is the 60s American version. Either way, I advise stay away unless you're like uber curious and go find a really good deal on it. Now, at this point, the 98 Godzilla has been released, and say what you will, but the character started getting a lot of buzz. So, about a year later, a company called ADV released Destroy All Monsters. Now, the cover of this looks like it could almost be part of the Scimitar releases, but don't be fooled. This is its own beast and has a reputation of being bare bones and very low quality, with again, one person claiming that the VHS release was actually a better quality, so this may be worth checking out for the sheer curiosity, but don't do it for a high price. Also, if you are going to take the plunge for it, they re-released the exact same disc again in 2004, the only difference being that it comes with the soundtrack. Like, no joke, I even heard one person claim that they had the original ADV release, was watching the movie, stopped, years later updated, got the 2004 version, popped it in, and it picked up where the last one left off. So this seems like the exact same. I don't know. Now, in the year 2000, Scimitar goes under. So the license for Godzilla is a little bit up in the air. So come 2001, we get a release of Godzilla vs. Megalon by Alpha Video. So this is unlicensed with no features. This is apparently one of the worst Godzilla releases out there. I can't even find a price for it, but I say avoid it. Like, I'll admit I'm curious because of the reputation of how bad of a print this is. Like, people are like, good job at finding the worst print. But knowing the prices these movies go for, if you run into this and someone is trying to charge you full price, talk them down, because it's not worth it. So after the whole Alpha Video debacle, come 2002, Classic Media gets the rights to release some of the Godzilla films on DVD. These are basically all the same movies that Scimitar released, excluding Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. So when they decided to release a box set, they ended up including Rodan. I managed to snag a copy from a video store that was closing down, but other than the inclusion of Rodan, this set really isn't all that fantastic in my opinion. If you can get it for a deal, I say why not, but bear in mind that, again, these are the American versions only of these films, and the set goes from anywhere from $50 to $100 some odd dollars, though I haven't seen one for sale in a while. More often than not, you'll see these being sold individually, usually in the $20 to $35 area. So as I mentioned earlier, if it's between these releases and the Scimitar releases, I'd go with these releases, but there's more releases on the way. That's right, in 2006, Classic Media actually takes another kick at the can and starts releasing the series in order and easily some of the best packaging we've seen yet for Godzilla, in my opinion. This is also the first time we get Gojira, the Japanese original, on DVD, and it's in some pretty decent quality, in my opinion. They then released an amazing box set in 2007, which is the same set I have. Now, there were a few releases of the exact same set, just in different packaging, mine being the most common one that I run into, but to my knowledge, the discs have always stayed the same. So these are close to half of all the Showa Period films, all in one convenient package, so let's go over them in greater detail. So each disc has both the Japanese and American versions of the film on them, aside from King of the Monsters and Gojira, which have them on separated discs. And while on the topic of the discs themselves, they look very nice and have features listed right on the disc art. I'll also say across the board, each movie has a commentary for its American version by a historian, most of which seem to have written books on the subject. They tend to switch up the historians throughout the set, but Steve Reifel and Ed... I couldn't appear on it the most. Though I do like the energy of David Callett, so I'm going to give him a shout out right here. Just on a side note on the commentaries themselves, they tend to not just be about the current movie you're watching. Like, rarely do I find that they're talking about the specific scene. It's all just general historic talk. Like, these could have been special features, but because it's the whole runtime of the movie, it's interesting, but just bear that in mind. So first we're looking at Gojira, and I gotta say right away, I love the vibe of the menu. Even before the movie starts, it's already setting up a nice flavor. There's also a nice selection of extra features, including featurettes, which are like slideshows full of information. On the Gojira disc, it's Godzilla's story development and making of the Godzilla suit featurette. On the King of the Monsters disc, we just get a trailer, but still I can tell that the effort was put into that disc as well. As mentioned, I feel like the film quality in this set is pretty decent, and though the American version changes the tone a little by adding in Raymond Burr and having him narrate a lot of what's going on, it's still treated quite seriously as a movie as opposed to the others that would follow it. Bear in mind, like, Godzilla is a metaphor for the atomic bomb, and even in design, they wanted his head to kind of resemble a mushroom cloud and his skin to look like skin burned by radiation. So it's some heavy stuff. The next in the series is the 1955 Godzilla Raids Again, which at this very moment has only been released on DVD by Classic Media. Again, the disc comes with the American and Japanese versions, which you can tell the tonal difference just by comparing the intros.
Blast of the hydrogen bomb, which has inaugurated a new and frightening era in the history of man. As the awesome mushroom cloud spirals upward into the outer reaches of space, a new terror becomes the instrument of man in the 20th century.
We again have excellent menus with a featurette about the suit acting. There's also a slideshow on the posters, which is pretty neat. Chronologically, the next movie would be Kong vs. Godzilla, but since it's owned by Universal, it's not on this set. So we skip to Godzilla vs. Mothra, or Godzilla vs. The Thing as it's also called. This is the second Godzilla film in color, and it really takes advantage of it with Mothra and her egg. The features on this include a slideshow of the original posters again, and a featurette on Akira Ifukube, who is the composer on most of the Godzilla films, including this one. Next we have Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, which is the first appearance of Godzilla's arch-nemesis King Ghidorah, a gold three-headed dragon from outer space. I love this one, not only for how cool Ghidorah is, but also we get Rodan and Mothra again, so there's just a bunch of monsters all over the place. This DVD comes with the original Japanese trailer, which is always nice, and we also get a featurette on Eiji Tsuburaya. Again, sorry, I'm probably butchering the pronunciations of all of these names, so my apologies. Who is in charge of the special effects in these early Godzilla films. We also again get an image gallery of the original posters, which is always appreciated. Next comes Invasion of the Astro Monster. This brings back Ghidorah and Rodan. As the title suggests, this has a lot of space and sci-fi elements to it, and includes that amazing dance that Godzilla does. This disc has the poster gallery, like the others, and a featurette on Tomoyuki Tanaka, a film producer who helped create the whole Godzilla franchise. Now, unfortunately, the set then skips 3 movies in the series, and the next one it provides is All Monsters Attack. This is one of the worst Godzilla films out there, and is actually the first one I ever saw. It at least brings in a new monster named Gabra and has Godzilla's son in it, but not much else. I mean, one thing to note is that it uses a ton of stock footage, so even though I'm missing the previous 3 movies, I still get the fight highlights, as it were. The DVD provides again an image gallery and a featurette on Ishiro Honda, who is the director of the original Godzilla and 7 of the other Showa Godzilla films. The only thing I'll say is this is also known as Godzilla's Revenge, like I said, and the only revenge he really got was on the audience. Again, unfortunately, the set skips a few movies, this time 4 of them, and the last movie we get is Terror of Mechagodzilla, which is like an immediate follow-up to Versus Mechagodzilla, which I always thought was kind of weird that it's on this set, but not the first one. I don't know. In this, we get a scientist that looks like a cross between Einstein and Colonel Sanders, who creates Titanosaurus, who's a sea monster. It's a very middle-of-the-road Godzilla film. I don't have very much to say about it other than it's the last of the Showa period. And as usual, the disc has an image gallery. This also includes a featurette called The Women of Godzilla, which is just about all of the lead female characters and actresses that had to do with the Godzilla series. It's very interesting. So I'll say I've seen the price of this set go anywhere from like $50 to $200. So it really depends on the seller. The price varies a lot on this box set. But I mean, bear in mind, out of the 15, you're getting 7 of the film. So it's a lot of them in just one package, which is nice. So as a recap, it has 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 10, and 15. So what about 3, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, and 14? Well, let's talk about that. So in between Classic Media's first and second runs at releasing this set from 2004 to 2005, TriStar started releasing a lot of the missing movies on DVD for the 50th anniversary of Godzilla. So they managed to release Ebirah Horror of the Deep, Son of Godzilla, Godzilla vs. Hedorah, Godzilla vs. Gigan, and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. All the DVDs have English and Japanese versions, which is excellent. And notably, to date, there has not been a re-release of either Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla or Son of Godzilla, so this is the only way to get them at this very moment, causing the prices to be a bit steep, especially with Son of Godzilla. I mean, to give you an idea, most of these range between like $30 to $80, but Son of Godzilla ranges anywhere between $100 to $150, so it's a bit crazy, especially because Son of Godzilla is not known for being one of the better Godzilla films. It's quite cheesy, so keep that in mind when you're looking. There was also a few box sets released, again, all going for a couple of $100, but just saying there's options out there to just getting these single DVDs from the TriStar run. Universal then released King Kong vs. Godzilla, the English version only, in 2005. I picked up a Blu-ray release from 2014 recently, and it goes for quite cheap, like we're talking $10 and under, but bear in mind that there is no special features here whatsoever, not even a menu, so it just starts VHS style. Like the sheer amount of historians that were on my other box set, Just get like one to talk about it. That's all I'm saying. So as mentioned, this is the English Americanized version only. So unfortunately for this movie, the English version has been recut heavily, and even a lot of the music has been changed to just stock music that Universal owned at the time, some of which I recognize from Creature from the Black Lagoon. Lastly, I'll just mention quickly that these usually gets bundled with King Kong Escapes, which is a crazy movie with a mechanized version of Kong in it, but it's a near identical disc situation with zero features, but I digress. So next, I'll briefly talk about some of the Kraken releases. There were a few Godzilla movies released by a company called Kraken back in 2014 on both Blu-ray and DVD. I only have one of the Showa films in a Kraken release, which is Ebra Horror of the Deep. It's definitely one of the weaker in the franchise, but it's still fun. I mean, Godzilla fights a giant lobster. All I can say is the menu is nice, and it comes in Japanese and English as well as comes with a Japanese trailer, which is always nice. Aside from Ebra, the other Showa films released by this company were Godzilla vs. Hedorah, or Smog Monster, and Godzilla vs. Gigan. So it's all kind of weird choices, to say the least, for Kraken. I will say that the Kraken releases themselves at the moment are fluctuating the most in price. Like, they all used to be around $15 a piece, but lately they've really been active. For example, Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, which is a very weird movie. This has gone through the craziest fluctuation lately. So all of these movies, like I said, started around $15 a piece. This one starts at $15, all of a sudden just shoots up to $100. Night and day out of nowhere. Then it keeps fluctuating. So I've seen it go anywhere between $50 and $190. So it's bonkers. So just saying. I don't know what's going on with Kraken. Like, the releases just keep going up in price. So last but certainly not least, I'm going to talk a little bit about Destroy All Monsters and Godzilla vs. Megalon. Together, they both have a history of weird, bad quality releases. Specifically, Godzilla vs. Megalon has the most documented unlicensed releases. Like, I accidentally missed a release in 2002 by Passion Products, which doesn't sound real, and one in 2003 by Age Video. I have no information other than they can get pricey in the $100 range, but rarity doesn't always mean quality, is all I can say about that. So these two eventually got released in 2012 by a company called Tokyo Shock, which is like the Asian cinema division of Media Blasters. And this even got a double feature release called the Stomp Box. Now, these early releases had special features on them, not approved by Toho, so they got pulled and re-released again in 2014, just bare bones. I mean, at least it has English and Japanese versions still intact, but nothing else. The features they did have was like some commentary, trailers, and an image gallery, but apparently the quality of those were not good, so I don't know. I have the 2014 Blu-rays, which I got together for like $50, which wasn't too bad. I find the packaging quite nice, and the menus, though simple, are also nice and stylized. Destroy All Monsters is pretty decent quality. I mean, I'm happy with it. But Megalon does this weird frame jitter that I thought was maybe just mine, but I've seen other people complain about it, so I guess it's just the release, which sucks, because Megalon is extremely cheesy and one of my favorites for that. Like, everyone talks about this dropkick, but there's some hilarious dummy work in here. And Jet Jaguar is just amazing, hands down. However, because of the image issues, I can't super recommend this release. At least not at full price anyway. So that was all my Showa collection, and I was just about to wrap this video up and talk about the Criterion release of the original when we got hit with some excellent news. So as I was saying, Criterion was able to make a deal and release the original Godzilla on Blu-ray, and like all Criterion releases, this was fantastic quality and full of features. Even Classic Media did a re-release, but with terrible box art. So from there forward, Criterion started buying the rights to the other Godzilla movies. They even had them streaming on their streaming service for a while. And it was rumored that they would go do a release run of these, but they were silent about it for years. Well, turns out it wasn't just words. Criterion definitely delivered. So this is the Criterion Godzilla, the Showa era films collection. This was announced maybe a couple months ago, and I managed to snag a pre-order. So this is the set, and it is massive. So this book, to show a size comparison in case it's not coming quite off. So this is a Blu-ray that I have on it, and this is the actual size of it. So it's comparable to like those I Spy books. I don't know how familiar everybody is with those, but it's a massive book. Let me just show off the back here. The artwork is beautiful on this thing. So this is the back, gorgeous. Originally, it had this kind of stuck on the back, so it was just listing off all the 15 films on the side, as well as a big blurb on all of the features that it has. So very good to have. I've kind of taken it off. You can kind of see, well, I don't know if it's coming off here, but you can kind of see where the glue was on this. So I'm just kind of using this as a bookmark at the moment, but really cool. So inside here, the artwork is incredible. So each kind of page, I mean, there's a lot of write-ups in here as well with facts about Godzilla, but each page talks about one of the movies. So there's a big blurb on it and has an illustration to go along with it. And these are gorgeous. I think there's a different artist for each one. It actually lists off the artists in the index, so that's great. But yeah, I'm just going to flip through a couple of these because they are gorgeous. Got Godzilla raids again here. It's fantastic. King Kong versus Godzilla. Mothra versus Godzilla. Like, these are some really cool stuff. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. I mean, I can't get over the colors. It's just magnificent. So, it's a massive book. When I get to the back here, these are where all the discs are stored. Sorry if I'm running through this very quickly. I'm just trying to get this in the video in time, so I'm a bit rushed. So this has all the Showa films on it, like I said. There's about 8 discs, 7 of which are the film discs. The 8th disc is the special features. So one thing I wanted to get out of the way right away that I noticed is originally I was under the impression that all of these had both English and Japanese versions of the film in there. But it turns out only about half of them have the English dub version. So here's a little graphic. So here's all the movies that have the English dub as a feature in there. So here's the ones that you can listen to in English. Now here are the ones that are Japanese only. So what that means is for films like, Godzilla Raids Again, you're only getting the Japanese version here. So that means if you want the English dub of this, which is kind of a re-edit of the film, you can only get it on the DVD, like the ones that I have. So that's kind of a bit of a bummer, but at least you do get some of them in the dub. So I'm happy with that at the very least. The other thing that I wanted to point out, I mentioned that all of these guys have like this, the first 7 discs have movies in them. Well, the 8th one, which is the special features, that's actually the disc that has the Japanese version of Kong versus Godzilla on it. Because when I took out the Kong versus Godzilla disc originally to check that out, because that was the one I was the most excited about, it wasn't on there. It was just a recut of the American version, and I was really bummed out about it. But it turns out the Japanese version is on the special features disc, which, I mean, I'm just glad to have it, but I wish they would have put it on the same disc. And it's not even that these can only fit 2 movies on it, because disc 3 has 3 different movies on it. So they could have easily fit it on the disc, in my opinion. So it's a little bit weird in organization, but the set is really cool. So I wanted to talk a little bit here about how the discs are stored inside this book, because it seems that more and more DVD sets are doing this whole book idea. Maybe not on this scale, but a lot are doing it. So one thing I'll give credit to this one is a lot of them, they kind of slide out the side. A lot like my Alfred Hitchcock collection. But with this, it's just, there's like a hole in the page and a little lip for the disc to go in. So as you saw, it comes out pretty easy. There's not much of a fight, but I do kind of wish that there was an easier way to get these in and out without sliding them in and out like that, because I feel like over time these might get a little bit damaged. Also wanted to make a quick note that in this set, Godzilla vs. Megalon still has that weird skip that I was talking about in the old Blu-ray, but it seems like they've at least cleaned it up a little bit so it's not as noticeable, but I guess that's just the way the film is. So I didn't remember this jitter when I first saw it, but maybe I just didn't notice it. So that's another thing I thought I would just point out, that it's still on this set, just not as bad as the Tokyo Shock version. But again, overall, this set is really well done. The artwork is fantastic. There's tons of special features and interviews. If I had more time, I'd show you a menu. If I can find an image, I'll put it here. But yeah, this has just got a lot of all the films, all the features. I just wish that I had the English version as well as the Japanese version for all of these. But Criterion has done a really good job with this, I must say. And for now, thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this helpful if you're looking into purchasing the Godzilla films. Again, I know I didn't really touch too much on the plots, but a later date I will get into those. Stay tuned. In the next video I'll be covering the Heisei period. Thanks again, guys. Later.